Welcome back to Assimilation Never Involves Meeting Ewoks. I'm your host, Grinchler, and with me as always is...
I'm Wooper. Hey, everybody. This is the A.N.I.M.E podcast, less than an hour edition.
We hope. Edition.
I'm cutting it off when it gets to an hour. When we did this last year, it took way too long. That's why we're doing only 3 seasonal shows instead of 4 this time. Baccano is going to be hard to discuss, so maybe it won't take very much time because we'll run out of smart things to say about it.
Yep, probably.
I know I will.
So what do you want to start with then?
I don't know. We could save Baccano for last, or we could even do it first while our thoughts on it are still fresh.
Sure,
But
let's...
I feel like most people who are listening to this probably want to hear about the newer shows.
Okay, well then let's start with Neverland.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's probably going to be like the big hit of the season because it's a Shonen Jump thing.
And how in this episode, never would be the things that happened that, no, that's not what I meant. There's nothing, just... This was definitely more of like, it felt more of like a part 2 to the first episode than it did like its own episode.
You think so?
Because it was kind of just like, it did a lot of just like character building and explaining, which normally is reserved for the first episode of a lot of shows. You know, you do some character building, you introduce everyone, and you get like their backstories, but the show twists, you know, at the end of the first episode. So then you have to re-backstory and re-explain everyone.
I don't feel as though we got a lot of backstory.
Well, maybe not backstory, but
And I don't think as though there was a lot of like explanation of things that we need to know in order to move forward. Or that's probably not putting it correctly. I don't think we got a bunch of information that was missing. You know, I feel like the characters, given, I mean, specifically Emma and Norman, given the knowledge that they have now, both of them are clearly moving forward. They're trying to cope with what's happened. They're trying to put together a plan. They're bringing Ray into the fold. I don't really agree that it was a part 2 because I think the first episode's one job was to like hook you. That's it. So this one seemed like its own beast to me.
Okay. I mean, I can see that, but it just felt like the first episode had a lot going for it. It, you know, establishes a lot of this intrigue and mystery, and then this is very different. This is less about the world and more about the characters and their plans.
Yes, it's an episode about planning. It's laying a lot of groundwork because the real story of this show is how are we going to get off the farm,
and
so
then
they're just starting to think about. In episode 1, they learn we're on a farm. Episode 2 is we need to get off the farm. Episode 3 is probably like, how do we get off the farm? And then beyond that, they try to get off the farm.
Right. And so they threw a wrench into their plans, quote unquote, at the end of episode 2 with the second mom.
Right.
You know, more pairs of eyes to watch them.
Oh, do you think that she's on Mama's side? Do you think?
Oh, of course she is.
Really?
Yeah.
Because in the OP, she's very friendly looking and sweeps all the kids up into like a big hug. Which is actually really nicely animated. Like it's very springy and kind of stretchy animation when she brings them all in together and like
I enjoy
crushes them in a hug.
springy animation.
Yeah, it's expressive. And her character just seemed to be, I mean, it could be a huge misdirect, of course, that she looks so friendly and, you know, warm and inviting and all that. But I mean, I'm tempted to believe that she's going to be an ally. That she's like good and I don't know how much she knows.
I definitely disagree with that. I think Ray brings it up at one point where he says that so we don't know what's beyond the world. It's obviously a world that's hostile to humans and that's infested with demons.
Right.
So that leads me to believe that she's not human.
Well,
she's just another watcher because we know that the mom is onto someone.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, given that they exist on a farm to be raised and then eventually consumed by monsters. So that, you know, that implies, as Ray says, that there's if they get across the wall or they get over the wall, that there will be a whole bunch of demons waiting for them. But the thing is, he also points out that they really don't know anything about society in general, what society looks like outside of their little cage. So it could be that Sister Crone comes from a different farm. That perhaps she was raised on another farm and was groomed to like take care of children, not knowing what the world is really like outside of this farm or the other farm.
Right. That's a good point. But I don't feel like the people in control of the farm would inject that variable into it when they're trying to control everything.
Well, there might be a narrative reason for them to do so, because we know that the demons are like obsessed about the quality of the meat, the brain meat. Apparently, they figure that out in this episode, that it's the brain meat that they want, because that's why they're constantly tested and scored.
Right. And they always disappear before 12 because I guess puberty ruins it.
Yeah, that's probably the implication. But if the bringing up of the children is so important to the quality, like the flavor,
maybe this farm isn't doing well enough, and so they need like more help or something.
That could be, but also it could
help.
just be a general principle that the upbringing of the kids is really important, and they should be raised like lovingly, as Mama does. You don't want think about like when an animal is paralyzed, and then killed. It ruins the meat. They need to be killed swiftly so that it's tender. So there could be a similar thing going on here where they want people on the farm, the aliens or the monsters, whatever. They want people on the farm who are going to love the kids and care for them.
The monsters are secretly hippies. If there's not enough love, it's not good enough.
Yeah, man. That sounds like as good a theory as any. Oh, speaking of theories, when Sister Chrome was introduced, they also introduced a baby.
Right.
Remember this? What was the baby's name? I think it was Carol.
I didn't write it down.
It was Carol. That's complicated because there's a Carol in Baccano as well. But did you notice that Carol had Emma's hair color and Norman's eye color? Red hair, blue eyes.
No. I mean, I noticed the red hair. I didn't notice the eye color.
I feel like that baby might be, given that it has those two very specific traits that main characters in the show have, and especially given that Norman is like in love with Emma, I think it would be interesting if like she was a test tube baby, if Carol was born out of genetic material from the two kids. Is that possible? Can you use genetic material from like pre-pubescent children, as long as you inject it into the womb of like a pubescent woman or a fertile woman?
Probably.
I have no idea. But like, I mean, we're already dealing with a show where children are living on a farm, where they're raised to eventually be eaten by monsters. So what's a little genetic experimentation on the side?
You know what the symbolism of the numbers on the side of their necks is, right?
What, Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure.
It's a camp.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that didn't go over anyone's head. I'm pretty sure everyone just went like, "Oh yeah, that's what that is."
Yeah, but I mean, also just branding in general. Like cows are branded on a farm.
They use ear tags now.
Yeah, well, I mean, just because that's the modern practice doesn't mean that Neverland couldn't draw inspiration from an older way of doing things.
Right.
But yeah, my mind jumped there as well, like right away. So they're Nazi aliens or Nazi demons.
Yes.
Cool.
That makes them even scarier.
Right. Sure.
Their favorite weapons are torches.
So what else can we've mostly talked about Sister Crone and Carol and the nature of what might be going on outside the wall, which is something that the show really starts to explore once they bring Ray in, because he's like the rational, logical character.
Right.
Who even in episode 1, when all the kids are speculating about, or talking about, what are you going to do when you leave the orphanage? What are you going to do when you see the outside world? All of them are like, oh, I'm going to go to the beach or something. He's the only one who says, well, the first thing I'm going to need to do is figure out how to survive. So
right.
he probably already expected, of course, not anything like this, but something along the lines of this place is too perfect. It's too much of it's too utopian.
Yeah, he didn't. Well, also when he found out what was happening, he's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. It's kind of convenient.
It's almost as if he expected it.
Yeah, well, we do see, he's the character who we do see like looking through windows, kind of spying on people in the first episode and in this one. he's kind of skulking around.
You say spying. I prefer the term surveilling with intent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's appropriate.
Yeah, he's definitely like gathering information and figuring out what's going on for himself rather than having to or wanting to rely on someone else.
Yeah, that's it's interesting that you say relying on someone else, because that's something that he is going to end up doing, perhaps against his better judgment, because he has that conversation with Norman about, he thinks it should just be the three of us who escape. Norman says, no, we're going to go with Emma's plan because I wub her. And of course, Emma wants to save everybody. So that there's some tension already between the two of them and Ray, which I assume is going to boil over at some point. They won't just set aside their differences and all work together to get the kids out of there.
Or they could just immediately set it aside because it's a Shonen Jump series.
No, I really don't think so, because Ray has been it's not as though we have like the trio that has been at the heart of the events of the series the whole time.
It's a duo,
Ray
is
an
with
outsider.
a third person.
Yeah, Ray is an outsider, and I think that's a conscious decision. He doesn't seem to be part of the gang. I mean, it's true that these kids are like the three highest scorers, in history at the orphanage,
on the ranch.
Yeah, and all the other people, all the other children there probably think of the three of them as a trio, like Harry, Ron, and Hermione. But it's clear that Ray is kind of distinct from the two of them, and I feel like when push comes to shove, he may abandon them. In fact, I wouldn't be too surprised if the first person to escape, like by him or herself, is going to be Ray.
And he leaves, and then
he would probably come back.
There's a flash forward 25 years later, and he started his own city and defending against the demons. Hey guys, what's happening? Remember when I said my plan was better?
His plan is better, man. Norman's is stupid.
We're going to take 37 of us, most of which who are under 6 years old, and escape outside of the eyes of demons who have tracking devices in us. What could possibly go wrong?
What did they figure out about the tracking devices? That they only transmit their location, not sound or
They know they
anything.
exist. And they know that someone has to actively be looking at a tracker to know where they are.
Right. Yeah, they see Mama with the
it looks like a compass, but it's obviously not.
Yeah, but didn't they also discern that nobody is listening in on them because of the conversations they've had? Like Mama would already know that they were planning to escape or had gone past the fence.
So they're not worried about what happens inside. They're just worried about people leaving.
Yeah. So that's pretty convenient for the series, I guess, that it can create whatever sort of conversations it wants without, having to worry about, is anyone listening in on my characters? The answer is no.
What's also even more baffling to me is just like, well, she has to look at it to know where we are. How do you know she doesn't already know that you guys are at the fence looking at the wall? Because she could just be checking every once in a while, like, oh, look, it's those three. Okay, they're it.
Well, she may know already, and she may just be feigning ignorance and questioning them, hoping that they'll break down. In episode 1, Mama acted like so sweetly and so tenderly. In this episode, she's already like, got the evil eyes going and is trying to pressure Emma into confessing. So it's
right.
What am I trying to say here? Maybe she does know that they've gone past the fence. I think it's probably likely.
But she doesn't want the three of them to just disappear for no reason.
Right. If she lets on that she knows what they're doing, Ray may actually convince the other two, we got to go. Like, we have to leave right now. We can't afford to take everybody else. And they may actually escape. And it's the three of them that are actually most important. They're the priority for Mama because they're the ones who she has to keep in good condition until it's time for them to be, until it's time for them to be shipped off. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I don't know if there's too much more to glean from this episode.
I have a few complaints about it, but
glean.
We do want to. It's glean with an N.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
I have a couple complaints about like some of the choices for the soundtrack and the backgrounds. Like they
reused some backgrounds Like, I mean,
Well,
it was on purpose.
The backgrounds
you
of all the interior shots in the house, I'm pretty sure are like digitally constructed.
there's CG.
I don't know about CG. There was definitely one instance of that where the camera was like kind of swiveling to the right as it looked down a corridor or down a flight of steps.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say they're CG, but they're definitely. I mean, maybe you could use that term. They are digitally created. Like it's not people's drawings that are being scanned into a computer for the backgrounds. They seem to be just a bunch of like assets,
Pieces of images that are just put together.
Yeah, which is pretty distracting to me, honestly.
I didn't really notice it. I noticed a couple like reused backgrounds, but it was when they were traveling the same path in order to get back to the fence.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
like
I mean,
they showed like the same 3 backgrounds in a row, like twice.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a general lack of attention being paid to the backgrounds in this series. Or perhaps lack of attention is not the right word, but there's like a purposeful neglect. Like it's just not what they're focusing on. They're not emphasizing it.
It's possible that
it's all about the story. It's all about like it's a thriller. So
it's also possible that if they have a budget for background, they're saving it for when they're outside the house.
Don't you think it'll just be a bunch more forest backgrounds, like including ones we've already seen?
We have no idea. We know there's a wall.
Well, in the OP, you see them like hurtling over logs and jumping past trees and over rocks and stuff. I feel like it's all going to be.
It's just going to be one giant forest running scene from Naruto for 26 episodes.
Please no.
Where you fly past the same tree like 6,000 times in one episode.
Anime does reuse backgrounds a lot. They gotta pump out a new episode every week, and then as a studio, like move on to the next project just to keep their head above water. So it's some visual shortcuts are to be expected, I guess.
Yeah,
but some productions are better than others.
Yes.
Speaking of which,
Mob Psycho 100 season 2.
It looks pretty good in general. So we can talk about the second and third episodes of this show since they're both out.
Yeah.
As opposed to Promise Neverland, we just talked about the second episode.
Which of the 2 Mob episodes? Or do we want to score Neverland?
Oh, is that how we used to do it? I thought we ranked them all when we did this in the past. We ranked all of them at the end.
Oh, okay.
Don't you remember doing it that way?
I don't know.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Let's just do it at the end then.
All right. What were you about to ask me about Mob Psycho?
Which of the 2 episodes did you like better? And I already know your answer.
3.
Yes. Same here.
I mean, I do feel as though they were somewhat similar in that they focused on, Mob's part-time job with Reagan, and there were just a bunch of different exorcisms and, spiritual problems that people had that they had to deal with. But I like 3 more because
a lot more introspective.
Yeah, I think it goes towards the theory that I had about episode 1, like Mob reckoning with his own power. The episode 3 kind of goes to, I mean, all the stories that it chooses, be it him choosing not to retaliate against some bullies, and all his brother and the guys from the Body Improvement Club, they bail him out instead of him, and Dimple too, they bail him out instead of him using his power. And then he doesn't want to exercise the family of 3 near the very end. He like doesn't want to use his power in a way that he thinks is immoral or is
right, or anything that just goes against his moral compass.
Yeah, he seems to view spirits and human beings as being on the same
plane. They're equals.
Yeah.
To him because they both exist in his life equally.
Right. Yeah. Reagan makes that point like very specifically. That's something he deals with on a daily basis. The appearance and existence of spirits.
Yeah, Reagan really like almost has the internal monologue and kind of acts like a dad.
Yeah.
To an extent. Like he's like, I should have noticed something was bothering Mob earlier. It's like I should talk to him.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it's unfair for me to do this to Mob, so I'll throw salt at these people and tell them that the spirits have been exorcised.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when he sided with Mob and said, "I'm not forcing you to do anything that you don't want to do." That doesn't seem to be like him. At least, certainly not the version of him that we're introduced to like in the first season. So it's pretty clear that he and Mob have grown a little bit closer. You could say he's sort of a dad. He's a really irresponsible and exploitative one, but he does seem to care about the little guy, which is nice.
Yep, that's true.
So you liked episode 3
more than 2
as well?
Yeah, let's actually talk about episode 2 a little bit first, before we go further into 3, if we do. So 2 was
Shinra Banchomaru.
Yeah, and Reagan's being like, man, we don't have enough clients. I need to put some food on the table.
Yeah, this was more like season 1 Reagan.
Yeah, let's go set up shop somewhere. The table's a little small, don't you think? I should have thought this through. Because you see this huge table put down and this giant flag come up, and then the flag isn't even as tall as Mob, and the table's like 6 inches off the ground.
But I mean, thanks to Shinra, they still managed to. Well, I mean, the woman approaches them. She might have done so even if Shinra wasn't there. But thanks to him, they are able to take care of a bunch of stuff around town. He goes straight to the dragger, while Mob and
he wasn't going straight to the dragger though. He went and found the red coat.
Oh, that's right.
The raincoat man.
Yeah.
The red raincoat.
The red raincoat. Yeah. I love the Street Fighter segment.
Yeah, so cool.
But one thing that confused me, and maybe this is just me being like way too much of a nitpicking nerd, is he manages to catch the red raincoat by the ankle as he's running away the first time. So why is the red raincoat able to escape, shouting over his shoulder, "I was on the track team in high school," the second time? Why can he get away the second time?
You don't always hit your combos, man.
I guess, yeah. Maybe Shinra, he dropped one of his combo strings. He missed an input somewhere.
He missed a chain grab.
Yeah. There's no other explanation. I thought that episode was fine, but it was all the explanation that I can't remember which character it was, but one of the characters explains that your fear of a myth or an urban legend like
gives it power.
Well, yeah, people's belief in it and their conversation surrounding it gives it power, but for each individual, your fear of it limits your psychic ability when you're in like trying to exercise it or when you're in combat against it, because your power is then coming from a place of fear. I mean, it's an interesting concept, but it was delivered at a point during the fight close to the end where I was like, all right, just hurry it up, move along.
It's like, all right, Mob has no idea he's gonna come in and blow it up.
Right.
Yeah. But
that kind of threw a wrench into that fight for me.
It may have been trying to comment on something further, trying to say that for people, we can recognize and know what our personal demons are, but it's not easy for us to defeat them ourselves.
That's deep, dude. Maybe
that's what they're trying to say. And they also mentioned like social media and how it brings rise to like these
urban legends.
The urban legends. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. One thing that I can't remember which character it was. Maybe Ekubo, Dimple. I think he said something as though you can't classify them as real or fake. I thought that was an interesting way of putting that. That people's belief in them and their conversations about it doesn't make them real, but it allows them to take form. Let's say,
it's like a paradoxosaurus,
right? Exactly.
Do you know what a paradoxosaurus is?
I understand that the word paradox is in there, and that applies to what we were just talking about.
Yes, so you get it.
Yeah. I don't have much else to say about episode 2, to be honest. Like my notes on that episode are pretty scant.
I'm wondering how much like actual psychic power
Shinra
had. My guess is 0.
No, we saw him use the prayer beads that he wears as a necklace, those big ass prayer beads. We saw him fling them at the dragger and bind her up. So he did that with his psychic ability, but then she breaks out of it pretty easily. Also, all the jumping and flipping and stuff that he did, that was, I mean, I guess that was just enhanced by Dimple, who possessed him at that point. But he is a real psychic. He even sees when the woman approaches them and they go to McDonald's and they get that pile of fries with the salt on them. So Mob is like forbidden to eat too many.
Right, because it's keeping away evil spirits. He's like, yes, there is something next to you.
Mob recognizes that it's the spirit of a middle-aged man, but even before Mob says anything, Shinra sees it. And the show doesn't reveal it to us, but so we can assume that he's a bona fide psychic.
The different grade than Mob, obviously.
Yeah. But he's real enough that he's able to
charge 10 times the price.
Oh, is that what he wanted to do? I remember they had a little discussion.
He's like, I charged her 20,000 yen. He's like, really? I was like, I started 200,000.
Well, probably because he's an actual psychic.
For this one, it would have been 500,000.
Yeah. I mean, he must be an actual psychic. If that's his business and he doesn't have a partner like who he can say, go slave, exercise this spirit. He must be doing it himself, you know?
But 20,000 yen is $200.
Yeah.
That's not exactly much.
I guess. I'd take $200 right now.
I mean,
you got $200 to spare? I'll take it off your hands.
Sure. You gonna exercise a spirit for me? Gonna put a curse on someone?
No.
My question is, who put a curse on Reagan?
He mentions that the guy who approached us, who approached me at the beginning of the episode, probably hired a real psychic to put a curse on me.
Which, by the way, was episode 3.
Right.
So we're kind of jumping back and forth between the two.
Not really. I mean, now we've just come back to episode 3.
Yeah. I didn't really have anything else to say about episode 2.
Okay.
Looks good. Sounds good.
Yeah, the fight. I thought the fight was a little choppy in some parts. There was tons of like really great dynamic looking animation with him flipping around and jumping off trees, and you got some shots that were really low to the ground as he kind of slid back in the mud.
Right.
You really felt the weight of his character traveling over the ground, and that he had been like a lot of force had been applied to him to make him slide like that. But there were also some scenes where it seemed like we were getting mostly keyframes, like mostly the poses. Specifically the scenes where the dragger was using her nails, her claws to slash through the trees.
I think that
those didn't a little bit stuttery.
It could also be doing that in part to emphasize speed. Like the action takes place so quickly that it happens in one frame.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a tried and true anime thing. Is you know how characters, especially in
there's
shonen
like
series,
9 sword strikes on one thing and then it explodes all at the same time.
No, that's a little different. That's like delaying the effect of an action, like the physical effect comes long after the cause.
Right,
but
which
I'm talking
in this
about
episode.
using mostly like keyframes, poses, stuff like that, in order to kind of give a sense of style to it, and to kind of imply that things are taking place very quickly. That's normal. So I mean, you could say that's what they were going for, but other parts of the episode look so much smoother.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it did drag on for a long time.
The fight?
Yeah.
Well, it was broken up a little bit by us going and seeing what Mob and Reagan were up to for a little bit and then coming back. But
it's still like 2 or 3 minutes. Like that's
No, it's longer than that. It was like the whole second half of the episode.
Yeah,
except for the running grandma.
That's a lot. That's a lot to animate for one episode.
Yeah.
So you can forgive a couple things there just because of the length of it. That's a lot of work.
All right, we're about to hit 30 minutes.
But yeah, episode 3.
What about it? We got to go fast.
Gotta go fast.
Didn't we already talk about it like in some amount of detail?
Yeah, in some amount of detail. And is there anything else you wanted to say about it?
If I did, we'd probably go past an hour.
Oh no,
I'm tired.
I was gonna say I did like how the halfway point in the episode after they had left him there, it's like, we're not gonna pay you. You didn't actually do anything. and they left him in the halfway point, like, the end and then the start of it before the commercial
You're talking
break.
about the eye catch.
Yeah.
In the middle, yeah.
It was them hitchhiking. It was them getting on the truck and then going because Riken was too cheap to actually call a taxi, so they hitchhiked with a truck driver.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, well, it fits with what we know about his character. And the art style that they use for that is pretty cool. Kind of sketchy looking and uses fewer colors than it typically does. So it gives it a different feel.
Yeah, it was also it used that it used the eye catch to show what happened in between
right
the first and the back
to progress
half,
the story,
rather than
to move the characters from one
than just being
to another.
Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, like a character card.
Yeah.
So
they actually did something with it.
The character cards they're fine too. But I agree. It's pretty clever and creative what they did with it.
Okay, cool.
I'm sure there's more that could be said about episode 3. Especially, we didn't talk much about the woman who's like being haunted by this spirit, or at least so she thinks. It's actually a psychic living next door who is like astrally projecting himself so he can peer on her through her window.
Right.
But I mean, we got to move on, man. We got to go.
There wasn't much to that. It was just.
I actually disagree. I could talk about it for literally minutes. But let's talk about Kaguya-sama.
Okay.
I thought this episode was great.
I can't believe that worked.
I don't know what that means.
It's a reference to a web series.
What can't you believe worked in this episode?
I don't remember the context. I wrote it down while I was watching, and I was like, "Hey, this is clever to say at this exact point."
Well, the 3 parts are
right. I wrote them down
because just like in the first episode, this one is broken up into 3 segments. I assume it's adapting 3 chapters of the manga.
Right. It's the line app.
Right. President gets a new phone.
The summer vacation spot,
mm-hmm.
and the dating advice.
Right. The dating advice is probably. I can't believe that worked because the guy gets together with the girl. He does the kabedan.
Yeah, that's right. The wall slam.
Yeah,
it's like that's been around forever. You didn't invent that.
Yeah, that's actually kabedon is actually the name of that, I guess, romantic technique in Japan. It literally means wall slam or wall hit. Kabedon. So he calls it. The president calls it a kabedan.
Can you imagine doing that in America? As a way to ask someone out,
your ass would get taken to court.
You get punched in the face.
You'd become a social media outcast after it got posted.
It's true. Yeah, I like this episode. What was your favorite of the 3 segments?
Probably the third one. I really, really loved all of Kaguya's reactions to the president. And I thought it was a really nice touch that the guy who comes to ask him for romantic advice, his name is not given, as though he's of so little consequence that he's not even going to be introduced. So he and the president are talking, and they're both complete morons with no romantic experience whatsoever.
Right.
And she's totally exasperated. She can't believe what she's hearing. She thinks one of them is dumb, and then the next one like one-ups him.
It's like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and you're that much of a retard as well. I thought that was really
I think my favorite part of that was when Shirogane is saying like, this is the move you use, or when the girl is just like, can you believe it? He doesn't have a girlfriend. And then he like dubs over what they actually mean. Yeah. And he's doing like a girly voice for like the first 3, and with the last one, he's lost interest in it. So he just says it in his regular voice.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't get that impression at all. I thought he just used like a deeper voice for her character. I thought he was still putting on an accent.
No. It sounded like his normal voice. So I thought that like he'd committed to the bit at the start, and then by the end of it, he's just like, I don't care about this anymore.
Huh? I didn't interpret it that way at all. I don't think that really makes sense because he's totally like desperate to project the image that he's an expert on the topic. But it's true. It's true. I definitely recognize that he used a much different tone for her character, like kind of a more like cool kakui tone. Like, oh, I'm the only one for him. Yeah, that was my favorite.
Won't I come in between their friendship?
Yeah,
women aren't friends.
Did he say that?
No, something to that effect. It's just
Okay.
like women have like terrible friendships and they break up all the time.
I thought he just said something like, that's just how women are.
Yeah, like they have terrible friendships.
But funnier than that was when the guy was like, I can only choose one of them. like he's a harem god. That was fun.
This isn't Fate Grand Order.
I don't know anything about the Fate series. I mean, I've seen half of 2 TV series.
I know there's like
Fate.
1 male character and 9 zillion female characters. So
I think it's a little. Certainly, that sort of appeal exists in the series, but I think there's more male representation than just that. I mean, I've seen a little bit of Fate Zero and a little bit of Fate Stay Night, but I mean, my opinion doesn't count for much because I haven't played the original visual novel. If you ask any Fate fags, they'll tell you that's what you have to do.
the original visual novel.
Yeah, it was a visual novel. But we're getting off topic.
You mean it's like one of those computer games that's absolutely atrocious?
Well, remember Phoenix Wright?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a visual novel.
Well, yeah, but there was a little bit more to it than that.
Well, maybe there's a little bit more to Fate. I have no idea.
Let's report back. No, we won't.
It was nice that in that segment we also still got even though that was the first one where it wasn't like a competition between Kaguya and Shirogane, and also Fujiwara was not involved at all.
Right.
Except at the very end, she's like, "But did something good happen, Kaguya?" But even so, we still got a little bit of like indirect interaction between Shirogane and Kaguya because he sees her peeping on their conversation
at the very last second,
and he reverses all the negative things he's saying about her. That was my favorite.
And the other 2 were the Line app.
Yeah, I thought the nice thing about that segment was that it kind of echoed the first episode where Kaguya enacts that elaborate scheme to plant movie tickets in Fujiwara's mailbox and fake a contest that she had won.
Right.
So in this one, she takes a bunch of workers at like her family's estate and plants them as like shills on the street
so that he'll get a new phone.
Right. Yeah.
And then the end twist turns out that her phone doesn't even work with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the show can't allow itself to move forward lest its comedic potential be ruined.
Right, but I didn't see that. I didn't see that was going to happen like right before it happened.
No, neither did I.
Yeah, so that's good. And then we had the.
I thought the second one was the weakest.
Let's go on a summer trip.
Right.
Well, yeah, you have to have the inexplicable boobs one.
Inexplicable?
Well, okay.
I can explain it.
Yeah, I can explain it too.
You gotta sell some Blu-rays, man. You need a character with tiggle bitties in the cast so that you can sell, you can sell merchandise and sell discs
and body pillows.
Right, dakimakuras, exactly.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, dakimakura. Now you know.
I think it's good that I didn't know.
Well, now you do, and I'm not sorry.
And that's more telling of you than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the middle one was probably the weakest. Like, it's amusing that they end up reversing their positions on whether they want to go to the beach or the mountains.
Because they both realized that their initial plan was
right. But that seems to be all there is to that segment is like, they start off as being A and B and then they flip and then,
right.
That's pretty much it. Whereas in the first one, I thought it was neat how it echoed the first episode, like I mentioned before, but I also thought it was really nicely directed, like the way that it cut into their internal monologue and then back out into the what's it called?
The real world.
The student council room. That was nice. And there was one shot that I really loved where, you know how he says, I'm going to change my profile picture in 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to see the picture of him as a kid, because she has a crush on him. So she thinks it'll be cute. So she's like her will not to ask for his contact ID or his contact info is like wavering. She doesn't know what she should do. Right when that happens, the show cuts to her reflection in the tea that she's drinking, and like it's rippling. The tea is rippling, and her reflection is wavering, exactly like her mental state. It like perfectly represents what's going on in her mind.
Huh. I didn't notice that.
I thought that was cool.
Even though she has no basis for it, she begins crying, which means that he has nothing to do but overreact, because he immediately thinks it's his fault.
Yep. Yeah, she's definitely the more devious of the two characters. Like they're both depicted as geniuses, or they both are geniuses. I don't know. And they're both constantly enacting schemes to get the other one to confess their love and stuff. But she is willing to go like the extra mile.
Even though that neither of them seem to be able to see that their plans are going to backfire.
Yeah, well, that's like, what's so funny about it.
It's like they're chess masters, but they only can see one step ahead.
Right. That's what's so. I mean, I would say that's what's so great about it, but it really has to be that way, because if they're both literal chess masters and can see 20 moves in the future, then it wouldn't be 3 segments per episode. It wouldn't even be 12 episodes in a season. It would be like a 10-hour-long movie.
It'd be 10 hours long where they sit in a room in dead silence and stare at each other.
Right, because neither can make the first move because the other one would perfectly counter it.
Right.
So they would just sit. Just like the 6 months that passed in the first episode where nothing, and during that time, nothing happened. You have any other nice things or negative things, whatever, say about Kaguya-sama?
They still have one setting.
Yes, that's true.
It's still just in the student council. I wonder if it's never going to leave the student council room.
I mean,
outside of their like monologues and like internal thoughts.
Right. That's possible. I kind of doubt it. I mean, it's in this episode, the show actually kind of it creates a way for itself to introduce more characters and perhaps broaden the scope of the series. Like, because the guy comes in to ask for help, and he's the first character, I think, who we've had who isn't one of the main 3, who's taking a big role in one of the segments.
Right.
And then you see at the very end of the episode, did you catch the thing where it said next advice seeker?
Yeah, so she's going to seek advice from
Kaguya. Probably. Yeah. But did you notice that girl was one of the 3 friends of Kashiwagi who that guy had a crush on?
Yeah.
So she probably had a crush on him. And now she's upset that he's confessed his feelings to her friend. So there's a possibility here for like more characters to enter the student council room and, you know, complain about their problems, or
while the other one overhears them secretly from a closet or
maybe
outside the door.
Maybe. But I mean, I feel as though by bringing in new people one at a time, eventually the show will get broad enough that it has to go to different places and try different things beyond just Kaguya and Shirogane chilling in the council room.
It probably
There's 10
will.
more episodes. I can't imagine that all of them will be there, but I kind of like that it also is in just the one location, because then it's all about the 2 characters and their mind games.
They're not spending money on like a bunch of different art and assets and stuff. It's all...
Well, they're not spending money on art and assets at all, because the visual style used for the council room is like
3D with
gross.
Some ink lines on it.
Yeah. I've actually gotten used to it, and it helps that I like the characters and the show as a whole, because when you're really interested in something, you tend not to notice when something looks like crap in the background or something. But I mean, I think it looks all right. It certainly could look better.
Sure, but I don't think it would serve the show.
Yeah,
for it to look better.
It really, I mean, it would, but it's not the most important thing that they could be doing. The most important thing is that the storyboards are really well timed. Like you allot just the right amount of time to each cut.
Yeah, there's good pacing.
Yeah, so that the impact of the jokes and of the characters, you know, plotting one scheme and then it failing and getting reversed on them and their reaction to that, it all has to be like really, really tightly put together.
It's not the Big Bang Theory. You're not waiting 17 seconds after a punchline for the audience to shut up. You have to keep it flowing.
It's low-hanging fruit, man.
Yeah, it is. I don't care. I'll kick that fruit off a tree any day.
Damn. What a badass.
Right? Whoa.
All right, let's move on to Baccano. It looks like we have 15 minutes to discuss 2 episodes.
That might be a challenge.
We might end up going over an hour. Sorry, folks. So Baccano. We both just watched these 2 episodes, I think.
Yeah, I've seen the first one twice, though. Because I watched it last week.
Well, I've seen the whole series.
Okay.
But it was when I was in college, so that was like almost 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think I watched it dubbed as well. I didn't actually remember that I watched it dubbed until I saw episode 2 when Jacuzzi is talking about the rail tracer. He's the scaredy cat with the tattoo or perhaps the burn scar on his face.
Right. Yeah, I know.
I think it's a tattoo. But
I definitely think it's a burn scar because of the other girl.
Right. Yeah, she has, her scarring is much worse.
Yeah, because
she mentioned that she's like a bomb nut.
Yeah, she's a pyromaniac.
Yeah.
Which extends to bombs.
Yeah. Another character references his, I think it's Isaac or Miria, who say that he has a tattoo. And it kind of looks like one, but yeah, it's probably a burn. Anyway. Damn, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the reason I knew that I had watched it dubbed was because he is always going on about the rail tracer. And in the dub, he has a terrible, like, fake Brooklyn accent, like Joey from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Sorry,
Abridged.
you, it's hard to do when I'm doing this fake Brooklyn accent.
Yeah. So he's always talking about the rail tracer in the dub. That's how I remembered.
I left the dub on for like the first 10 minutes of the first episode.
Oh, you got a version with the dub?
I have a dual audio.
Okay.
The subs are not great.
Okay. Well, I downloaded Mott-Bob's subs.
Okay.
And he usually does pretty good work.
I don't mean like it's hard to read. I just mean like the font isn't great. That's all.
Oh, well, just try another version.
Yeah, it's fine, but I listened to it dual, and so after the start, which is, you know, the
Carol and
the vice president of the newspaper,
the Daily Day,
which is the guy who does voiceovers who sounds like this.
Oh, really? The Space Dandy narrator.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's the
what a coincidence.
What a coinky dink. After he does that, it goes into the city, and it focuses on not Luck, but the other guy that's with Luck.
Firo?
Yeah, Firo. And he's with the, can you spare some change for an old man?
Yeah.
And
so was there a problem with Firo's voice or something?
Firo has like this fake Brooklyn accent.
Yeah.
You
had to turn it off?
It's not too bad. No, it wasn't that made me turn it off. It was when the mafia boss is yelling to all his goons to go out and like kill the other families and like raid their stores. And he sounds like he is like half-heartedly speaking into a vacuum.
Really?
Yeah.
In the Japanese audio, he has a really distinctive, like growling, really bass-heavy voice. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it's very different. And the guy who leads them, the guy who's like sitting behind the desk talking to him afterwards, being like, "You need to take care of this guy. He's going to be a problem."
Okay, how many times during the discussion of this series are we going to refer to people as this guy? It's got to be in like the hundreds.
It will be, because there are so many characters. I would need
and most of them are guys.
I would need a spreadsheet.
Yeah, or a bunch of notes,
note cards.
Yeah, that might be helpful.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna cram some Wikipedia summaries and stuff before each episode, I guess. It really is hard to... I mean, that's the thing about Baccano. It opens in episode 1 with a conversation between Carol and the vice president of the newspaper, like you said. But what they're talking about is like, essentially they're commenting on the nature of story. About story, like it being an open question where stories begin.
Right.
And
which is why...
and that anyone in a story could feasibly be a main character.
That's why it seems main character-ish.
Right.
Hero.
Yeah, it's really, and the story does seem to be on some level, at least I remember this being my impression of it when I watched it the first time, although it was like 10 years ago. Baccano itself seems to be like a commentary on the nature of storytelling. It's meta, if you will.
So is it season 3 community meta?
Maybe not that meta. That's really meta.
That's pretty meta. A cave of frozen memories.
I thought that it was pretty easy to follow what Carol and the vice president were saying, despite it being sort of high concept. Like, not a lot of stories will talk about themselves at that length. But I could at least understand what was going on, because it was two characters in a room. Even if the way that they talk to each other, like, he's constantly awarding her points for the quality of her answers.
She's like, out of how many?
Yeah, and she doesn't know what that means. That at least it's two characters in a room and you can follow what's going on. But then, like, the show opens up and suddenly you've got 24 like thieves and gangsters and
immortal people.
Right. Yeah. None of those being mutually exclusive, because many of the gangsters are immortal.
Right. Well, it only seems to be from one family, though.
That's not true, because when the bookstore gets shot up in episode 1, Firo and the other guy, Luck, they're from different families.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't get that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to know.
Because they hang out with each other. I guess that's why he said that, you shouldn't hang around me.
Oh, did Luck say that to him?
He says something along those lines. And that's why when he catches the one guy after the store gets shot up, and he just leaps out of it with like bullet holes in him.
That's Firo who jumps out.
Kicks one guy in the face and is just like, well, at least I can do this for you, and then kind of just waddles off.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to know. The show is hard to follow, but it's not hard to know what's going on. Like, each scene is pretty clearly communicated and directed, well enough.
I also think that as the show goes on, as you just have more time with the characters, everything starts to make more sense.
I definitely don't remember that being the case.
Does it get worse?
I don't remember whether it gets worse or better or anything like that. But by the end of my first viewing, I was still pretty confused. Like, it comes to an ending of sorts. Actually, there's 13 episodes, and then there's a 3-episode OVA afterwards.
14, 15, 16 being the OVA.
Yeah. And they do tie into the main plot, if I remember correctly. So maybe by the time we hit episode 13, the story won't be quote unquote over. That's for another episode, though.
Right. Okay.
Of the podcast, I mean. So some background on this show. It's based on it's an adaptation of a light novel series, actually, that's been running for like the last 15 years.
Wow. But when did this show originally come out?
2007.
Okay.
The first novel came out in 2003. So it's an adaptation of perhaps just the first volume or just the first few. That I don't know for sure. But it's nice to get a story that's based on a light novel with some imagination to it.
That isn't someone trapped in a world with
video game
status
mechanics.
Magic.
Yeah. It's definitely very different. And very, very complicated if you're not like really engrossed in what's going on.
What is it? The first time you watch the show, it starts with the OP, of course, as a lot of shows do. And there's 17-ish characters in the opening. Like,
yep.
How are you supposed to remember this?
Well, that's why all the characters are in the OP with the little character cards.
Also, did you notice that the font and the script that surrounds the font is very reminiscent of Law and Order?
Kind of. Yeah, I can call that to mind.
When they do the freeze frames with like who's portraying each of the actors and stuff, that's
or no, not who's portraying each of the actors, who the characters are. Those are not voice actor names.
In Law and Order, though, it's
the actor.
It's the actor. Yeah, not the character. So, but it looks very similar. It's like the same kind of script and like kind of stuff on top and bottom of it. I don't know what to call it.
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah, the typeset. That's what I'll call it. Yeah, so episode 2.
Are we going to gloss over
episode 1? Like the whole thing?
It really is. This might not have been the best choice for an older series for us to go through and discuss, because it's kind of impenetrable when you're not looking back on it after having viewed the whole thing.
Discussing plot points is also really difficult because
we don't know what the plot is yet.
The next episode starts a year before this episode begins.
It does?
Yes. This is 1931. The last episode starts at 1930.
That's after, not before.
After.
Yeah, that doesn't quite make sense to me because at the end of episode 1, we see Isaac and Miria getting off the train and meeting up with Firo and Claire, I think her name is, the woman, maybe? Or no, Ennis.
Yeah.
So if they get off the train and meet up with them in 1930, how are they on the train in 1931?
Well, in 1930, like there's a 5-month time skip, and then there's another time skip.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's another time. There's 3 time skips just to make it make sense, because they're mining for gold and they just don't find anything.
Yeah, those two, the gold miners, the gold diggers, whatever. Isaac and Miria, they're definitely the most likable, most colorful characters in the series. The scene that sticks out in my head is when they're bouncing on the hammock. The hammock is hanging behind them, and they're like going
one,
boing, boing.
two,
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
And this is as they're discussing like a heist that they can pull off, steal money from the mafia, or just a way to get some quick cash, something along those lines.
Rather than trying to mine for gold because he saw us
dig for gold.
Dig for gold.
Or mine.
They have pickaxes and they're in a mine.
Yeah.
Mining for gold.
Right. Well, they're not panning for gold. That's important.
Right.
Because he thought that was like
because people were running them off his land.
Yeah, that was just for scrubs and amateurs.
Scrubs, water, get it?
No.
I
got it.
Okay, I thought so. Anyways.
Yeah, they're the most likable of the bunch. They kind of stick out like sore thumbs, honestly. Don't you agree?
Yeah, they do. They're until you get on the train and you meet some of the other main characters that aren't either all dressed in white or all dressed in black.
Are there any main characters in this show? Or is every character like equally...
If you're in the OP, you're a main character.
Then everybody's a main character.
No, there are people that aren't main characters that we've met.
What, just
so
like
far.
the faceless goons? Do they even merit consideration?
Wait, did they give a name to the bartender in the train?
I was under the impression that the bartender was one of Jacuzzi's guys. Because he seems to have like a posse with him.
Maybe it's the cook then who isn't. I don't know. It is really hard to tell.
Yeah. All the parties on the train, we've got Jacuzzi's. I mean, everyone who's on the train is in pursuit of whatever is in like the end car, right?
Which is a bomb.
Well, we don't know that for sure. That's what one person speculates that it is. It's probably a bomb. Maybe that's what Jacuzzi's group is in search of. They think it's a bomb. But I kind of feel as though the thing in the end car will be like...
The mafia ordered a bomb, and it's coming on that train.
Huh?
And we know that 18 people die on that train.
What? Slow down. Which family? Which mafia family?
The guy with the big gravelly voice that I don't remember his name. Remember that we were talking about at the start?
Yeah.
He's like, we can special order a bomb from somewhere.
I don't know.
And then they talk about there being a bomb on the train. There's someone's trying to steal. And then the senator says something about, I put my family as far forward as possible, but if they die, they die. As if he's trying to blow up his adversaries with a bomb. Because it's a special bomb to kill immortals.
Okay. All right, that makes a little more sense, I guess, if it's specialized like that.
We've got like a death cult on board.
As I was watching, I kind of got the feeling that the show was like misleading us purposefully, and like some of its characters were under a mistaken impression about what might be in the last car, and that it would kind of function as a MacGuffin. Like it doesn't really matter what's in the last car. What matters is that everybody is going to be in conflict over it, and it's going to cause bloodshed. But I mean, the idea of it being a bomb that kills immortals, that makes sense given that half the characters are immortal and like put themselves back together after they've been blown to smithereens. Even the little kid
who gets his head just blown off at the start of the first episode.
Then we suddenly see him on the train.
Well, I mean, you see his whole face go back together in the first episode.
Yeah. Yeah, he's on the train. His name is like Coleslaw Meyer. Or something like that.
And you actually do know that it's an explosion that happens at the back of the train. Because remember how they mentioned that there's an orchestra and all their stuff is kind of like held in the cargo hold.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's a misdirect because they're actually the death cult.
Yeah,
or like the ghosts or something. They're like living ghosts essentially.
Yeah, I remember that. They're the guys who are all dressed in black, right?
Right, and they brought a bunch of luggage on board with them.
Their leader is somebody named Huey.
Yeah, who's in prison.
Yeah, they need to. Well, I don't know if he's in prison. Did your sub say prison?
Yeah.
Okay, mine just said that he needs to be rescued.
Yeah, he's being like held in a penitentiary or something.
Okay. Yeah, I remember like before all the characters get on the train. Man, this segment is just us trying to
figure out what
the hell's going on, or what the hell we just watched. I mean, I suppose that's the normal experience of watching Baccano for most people is like trying to put together the pieces.
Like watching Looper.
Except, yes, I have seen Looper. Except Looper, I processed what was happening in Looper pretty quickly. I feel the movie spells it out for you. But that's one thing I want to talk about in regards to Baccano is that it doesn't spell it out for you, and the way the main narrative device that it could use to spell things out for you is
like
internal thoughts,
a voiceover or a monologue.
True, that I hadn't considered that. Yeah, a narrator would work pretty well, I guess. But there's only one instance in either of these episodes, I think, where we're inside a character's head and hearing their thoughts. It's the little kid, who I am calling Coleslaw for some reason. His name is actually Cheslaw. Cheslaw Meyer.
Yeah, he thinks to himself, it's like, why did I use my real name?
Why did I use my real name? But I think that's the only voice that we hear. Apart from that, the show is content to just show us the events as they're occurring
and let us figure it out
at different times. Yeah, across different parts of the country, maybe in like different years, and let us figure out what
the whole story is.
Right.
If they were to add a narrator, they already set one up.
Who would the narrator be? The president guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I suppose. He mentioned something about a ship crossing the Atlantic in 1711. Do you remember this? When he's kind of debating with Carol over what the start of the story would be?
There's like this pentagram with like runes carved in it. And I was like, all right, so that's the start of the Immortals, probably.
Yep. Yeah, so
I have a strange feeling that this show isn't going to go forward in time. It's going to keep going backwards. Because we started
Did we establish yet that it actually is going backwards?
It started in 1931, and the last thing that happened was the train arrived. Then we went to 1930, and the last thing that happened was something was about to happen on the train. So we have gone backwards in time.
Okay.
Based on the end of the episode.
I remember very clearly in episode 1 seeing a little thing that said November 1930.
No, it was 31.
Damn.
I'm positive.
Okay. Well, maybe whatever screenshot I choose to be up while we're talking about this in the YouTube video will say November 1930 because I could have sworn that was the case.
Well,
perhaps that's just adding to my confusion.
Yeah, it's possible. So, what do you think about the presentation of the show?
The presentation?
Yeah,
I'd say
which is like sound, visual, and direction. Less story and more how does it look?
I'd say it looks okay. Looks all right.
It's very muted.
Yes, it is. There are some scenes, particularly in the bookstore before it got shot up, but when Luck and Firo were just talking to one another, it was like gray.
Yeah.
All the different books on the shelves, you could tell that some were red, some were green, like the spines were all different colors, but it was all like a big fat gray filter had been applied over top of it.
Yeah.
I really don't like. I think
it's because of the setting though. You got to remember what time period this is and where we are.
Yeah, New York, Great Depression.
Yeah.
And what's the other phrase that I'm looking for?
New York, Great Depression.
Prohibition.
Prohibition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No alcohol.
3 not great times in New York's history.
That's 2.
That all happened at the exact same time.
Yeah. But why make it so? Why make it gray? Like I'm having a hard time getting it out because it really frustrates me. Like it's not as though life back then. I mean, maybe there's more pollution in the air, a little bit more smog, but it's not as though life itself was like any less colorful during that time. I understand that you can make the choice to like respect the mood that you're going for by using a different color palette.
I was going to say they're going for like a noir kind of feel with it. Which
No, definitely not, because noir has tons of internal monologuing.
I meant like visual style of like old noir films and stuff like that.
I don't think so.
Which were definitely like muted and gray. Some of them were actually monochrome.
I don't think it really feels like a noir at all.
Too much peppy jazz, not enough sad horns.
It's a little bit too upbeat. The lighting is not nearly harsh enough. Noir is all about like
hard
light,
shadows.
Light and shadow, and the big contrast between them. Baccano doesn't. I mean, I guess if you like went back and watched the episodes and gave them a really close reading, you might be able to make an argument that it's going for that style. But I don't think that it is, because it mostly just, I don't know. Watching it, I get the sense that not a lot of time was allotted to the production. It looks the scenes that really need to look great, such as when characters are reassembling themselves after they've been dismembered or like totally blown to hell. Those look very unnerving and really cool. But when characters are just walking from point A to point B or talking to one another, some of their faces are like kind of hastily drawn, and what's more important is the art style, like the character designs,
right?
Which all have
trench coats and fedoras.
They all have that's the way they're dressed, but they all have like a bit of an edge to them. Do you know what I mean by that? Like the characters
like
all,
Mom, I'm so edgy.
No, like Firo, for example. He's the quote unquote protagonist. But he has a little bit of an attitude to him, a little bit of an edge. He acts kind of sly and sarcastic. And I think his facial design in particular, and a lot of the characters' facial designs, has that potential to like transmit that feeling or that element.
Yeah,
of the
I see what you're saying there, and I definitely agree with that. And I think they almost contrast, like all the families almost sort of have a distinct like facial style to them, which makes sense considering that they're related.
That's something I have not been able to pick up on yet, because I don't know how many different mafia families are involved.
You can tell at the very least though with, and I don't know his name, but deep gravelly voice mafia man from episode 1.
Yeah.
He has like, a very square face with like a very strong square jaw. And then the old man that he's talking to has a smaller face, because he's older, but it's still the same shape. And then all the goons he's talking to look pretty much like that as well. And you're assuming they're all part of the family.
During that scene, I was just struck by the difference in appearance and attitude between the head guy who gives the orders and the deep voiced guy who is like bloodthirsty, kill them all.
Right.
I just thought it was, it's clear because they're in the same place and one's giving direction to the others. They're part of the same unit, but I didn't really make any sort of connection between them. Like their appearances just seem so different to me. And I mean, even once the guy has left and told all of his flunkies, go and kill this family and that family and let's take over their territory and such. The first guy, there I go again with calling somebody guy.
Right.
He says like, I don't know what your sub said, but mine said something along the lines of, what a hothead, or what a louse, or that basically that dude's no good. Like he's just all temper and no subtlety.
I think mine said that he was like crude.
Yeah.
Like just in the way that he got things done.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he certainly is, because he's carrying out executions without getting the say-so from his boss first.
Right.
Which is, probably one of the many reasons why the mafia families might be at war with one another.
You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding, and you ask me for a favor.
And that is indeed a line from The Godfather.
That is the worst Godfather I've ever heard.
Which is a mafia movie.
Elaine.
Yeah. I like the show.
Yeah, that's good.
It's different.
Yeah, it is very different.
Its odd structure really, I think, helps it kind of stand out rather than it I don't know what its destination is yet. I don't know where the quote unquote start point is. I wonder if there's a guide.
That's a point that the show is making, I think.
That stories don't necessarily have a start. It depends on where you look that it starts from, technically.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way to watch this show chronologically.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's some sort of super edit somewhere on the
Just
internet.
like the Star Wars Extra Special Edition.
Yeah, except good.
Well, that's what it is. The Extra Special Edition is when they edit the Blu-ray and the original film together to cut out all the extra crap that Lucas added afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that something like that exists for Baccano. It's the sort of show that might inspire someone to create something like that.
Yeah.
But I think part of the appeal as well is to be somewhat confused and somewhat perplexed as you're watching it, so that the message of the show, which is sort of a commentary on storytelling, can sink in. Yeah. You need to be a little bit out of place as a viewer in order not to process things like, oh, okay, well, we moved from scene 1 to scene 8 in that order. All right.
Yeah, so you want to rate these shows?
Sure.
How about you start with what you rated last?
That would be Promised Neverland.
Yeah, I had Promised Neverland last as well.
Damn. That's I'm kind of surprised by that.
Really?
Yeah, because you seem to like it a lot.
I did. I did really like it. But I didn't think this episode had as much intrigue as the first episode did.
But, yeah.
Which obviously it didn't. So
it couldn't.
No, well, I mean, it could, but the pacing then would be horrendous.
Then they'd have escaped the farm by the second episode.
Yeah. Which leaves more episodes for aliens.
Right, I suppose so. I mean, I just put it last because I feel as though the show's technical merits are kind of lacking, and I mean that's really the main reason, I think.
Okay.
I still think the concept is interesting, but I mean, if I never watched another episode, I don't think I would be very sad. I'm not averse to watching more episodes.
Right. Okay.
So third, I put Baccano.
Wait. We were rating those. I thought you said we weren't gonna put.
Oh, so we're just the three.
Yeah, just the 3 season ones.
Okay, yeah. Forget I said anything.
Baccano's in a vacuum.
Mob Psycho, I put second.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I had Kaguya second.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mob Psycho it's good, but the thing that I really loved about the first episode was that it dove back into Mob's school life. Which is the part of the show that I like the most. When it's not about him, it is a show about a psychic who deals with spirits and such, and who has psychic battles with other superpowered people. But those aren't my favorite bits. My favorite bits are Mob trying to figure out who he is,
be a normal person.
Yeah, and just
normal in air quotes.
strive to improve himself and form relationships with other people, even though that's really difficult for him.
Why are you crying, Mob? I've been training for months, and that granny ran faster than me.
Yeah, I mean, rather than seeing a story like that, short as it was, the little running granny thing tacked onto the end of episode 2, I would rather see him just like hanging out with his bros in the body improvement club. And I want to know what the deal is with A.N.I.M.E, the girl whose novel he reassembled, and his childhood crush who sees what he did for the other girl and makes some sort of remark about it, like, "Oh, that was really smooth."
Like, nice.
Yeah, I just want to know what the deal is with him. It's interesting to me the contrast between his super powerful self, I suppose, and his normal self that really wants to be just a typical
regular
middle school boy.
Yeah,
I think they're middle school.
They are.
Yeah,
it's like, we gotta go. My protege is in middle school.
Right. Oh yeah, he did say that. Reagan did say that in episode 3.
Yep.
Right before he threw salt all over his clients.
Yeah.
So you put Kaguya-sama second?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I just thought Mob's third episode in particular. I mean, episode 2 was cool. I liked the fight,
scenes,
and I liked the I like the second psychic, whose name I can't remember because I don't write any of this stuff down, even though I should. Shinra, thank you. I liked him. I thought he was interesting. But the third episode really just
Third episode is thematically stronger, I think.
Yeah, and I think it has like a longer lasting impression. Especially if you think about like what Mob's dealing with, and if you kind of take an introspective look at yourself as to the same types of things that Mob's dealing with, which is how do we perceive different groups of people that
So you're saying that the fact that Mob doesn't discriminate between humans and spirits is the way we ought to live our lives, by not discriminating between people of different races or genders. This podcast is woke.
Yeah. You don't think it's possible that that's what is trying to be said?
No, I don't think so, man. I really just think I feel as though all the portrayal of Mob as a character who's very sensitive to spirits, both in terms of seeing them as individuals and sensitive, like he can sense them, that just informs us about what kind of person he is. I don't think that there's any sort of commentary intended there. I mean, if you zoom way out and just make a parallel between like real world social issues and Mob's sensitivity to spirits, like acceptance, like be accepting. Acceptance is good. That's about as strong a link I think you can make between them. But I think the show has gone that route before. Like,
yeah, I'm probably just overanalyzing more than anything else.
Well, this is we should probably do our best to analyze. We should make some sort of attempt at it rather than just say this was cool or I don't know what's going on.
I like the explosions. What was the plot of this episode? So then you had Kaguya first.
Yeah, I just get a kick out of watching Kaguya and Shirogane, like their death games,
love games.
Yeah, love
is war, love is war, love is war.
Yeah, the actual subtitle of the series is the Genius's War of Love and Brains. So it is. It's like, they're both romantically interested in each other, but they're also competing with one another because they're both really prideful and intelligent. So it's interesting for me to want them to be together because I think they're really similar. But at the same time, I don't want that at all because then it's over. Like
the show's over.
Yeah, well, the show's over, and also the phase of their relationship that they're in now, which is really fun to watch, that would be over.
Right, but that can evolve into a second phase where they're trying to, be the person who is dominant in the relationship.
I mean, the title of the manga is Kaguya-sama Wants to Be Confessed To. So I don't know if you can actually go ahead with the confession.
Does it have an end, or is it?
I don't know.
Like
it's ongoing.
Zillion running.
There's over 100 chapters. I haven't read it, but
that's a lot. Well, if your theory is correct, we've already gone through 6.
Yeah, but
if each little
if my
segment
theory is correct, we'll
chapter.
only go through 36 total.
Right.
But they can skip chapters and so on, and they can adapt it however they like. So far, I haven't read the manga, but that's one of the things I like about it is that it feels as though it's a really good adaptation.
It really makes you feel like a manga.
Sure does. Yeah, so I liked Kaguya the most, and you liked Mob Psycho the most.
Yeah.
But Neverland, poor Neverland.
Nope, just sitting there in the back trying to figure out how to get over the wall that is our objectively correct opinions.
Too right.
All right,
well, we'll be back next week
with some more correct interpretations of Japanese cartoons.
Yeah,
that air at 2:30 in the morning.
Over there. Sure.
Yeah.
So it'll be Mob Psycho episode 4 next week, and then episode 3 of the other 2 shows, plus another couple installments of Baccano. Look forward to it, everyone. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.